Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to what is a very well heavily drawn on map. A couple of explanations coming as to why in a moment. Joining me on the casting couch is Tank Tom, and today we're doing a King of the Hills on Claymore. Basic outline of the rules for this one is that the map is divided into 5 segments known as triangles. Each one of these triangles is its own self-contained battlefield with 1 king and 2 peasants. The king has plus 40 eco, and it is the job of the peasants to try and destroy their king, or the king to try and destroy their peasants. Once either the peasants or the king falls, the invisible walls between the triangles break, and you can spill on out into the neighbouring triangles. There is a no rush 10 minutes, and plus 40% eco for the kings, which means that they at least have a chance against 2 players. Jumping down, we have 5 reasonably new kings in the AllReasonNoLogic sector, and they're going to do their best against the what looks to be 11 peasants this time round. Tank Tom, what do you reckon is going to be the outcome of this one?
This will be interesting because there's a bunch of new players on both sides. It seems to be a lot of, if you don't, particularly as a king, if you don't have your army and defenses up, or enough of one to cover one side and the other to cover the other, then you can fall fairly hard early on. Although that works both ways. If the kings can actually get their army out to a peasant, they can fall incredibly quickly because if they're anything like me, they generally don't have much more than the handful of units that they scrap together in the last minute or so before the timer runs out.
Very much so. One thing to quickly point out is down the bottom here we have Winera. He is our 11th player. He is what I consider to be the balance breaker. One side gets the advantage of an extra com and his extra 1,000 starting metal plus the build power to send off these mexes and give wind very, very early. Winera does like to take this position, and he tends to get his com into the fight nice and early, see if you can't tip the scales against the king. There's a few different viable strategies, but Punjaba is showing us one of the most viable early game strategies for both the kings and the peasants, and that is going into large quantities of wind, lots of converters, and then into an early T2 to try to get those mexes up and try and maximize the metal. You've only got 10 minutes to do your build, so getting offensive units early, not such a good idea. We've got mass builders coming out of some of the kings, definitely a good spot, and the kings are going at different paces. We've just had a com detonate. Red is detonating his com for extra metal. Not something which I personally would do, especially considering that he's just lost a bunch of it because he did not have a metal storage. So some of that went to the other kings. Got to do what you can to maximize your build power, and the com is a great source of build power.
Yeah, on the top. Oh, it's the second com going down. I found that normally it's the build power that's the limiting factor up there, rather than necessarily your metal.
Battle paused.
Just having a pause here because one of the kings has expanded outside of his opening circle. With these being newer players, there is some expectation that this sort of thing will happen, and we just try and monitor it best as we can.
Most players have been generally pretty good about it. He did see the comment I stuck in the chat just a second ago on Broady's builder back into his base.
Yeah.
So I suspect this should be relatively smooth sailing once we get going again in a second here.
The only time we ever really run into issues in this game mode is when there's when there's a language barrier. The rest of the community seems to be pretty good about it, because anyone who wants to try these custom game modes is usually very open to playing by the rules. One of the areas, one of the things that I'll just point out here, Jarman is building his eco in what looks like a very spread out way, but this is actually definitely the way to go, because it means that if units come in, you're not going to get chain reacted, your build power is spread out, you're not going to lose all your build power all at once. Because one of the most crippling things for a king is a small run by at 10 minutes that takes out the build power. You can have all the resources in the world, but that first build power rebuild is going to set you so far behind that you're essentially out of the game for a while.
One of the other benefits that I found about spreading them out like that is you can have it feeding a bunch of your eco centers getting built.
And getting those eco centers online is critical.
So you can see he's got the highest energy production for the king so far. And I imagine a lot of that is just that being able to spread those out. Looks like some of these kings are likely going to be struggling when we get to the 10-minute mark.
They do have their T2 up, and it is rolling at least. Red is definitely going to struggle.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. There seems to be a significant lack of...
Orange also detonated their comm, but didn't completely consume it, so it can be resurrected and made good use of the metal. Red was not prepared for the metal and energy influx, so Red is going to be well and truly behind by the 10-minute mark. Having a quick look at the Cream player, Cream also looking like they may be a little bit behind, getting the conversion rather late. Burnout doing very, very well. Having a look up the top side and a couple of the players on here. T2 coming out from everyone. They're sharing those around so that we don't have to have multiple T2 labs going down when it's not necessary. A good mix.
I suspect that the kings are going to win the north side. The peasants are going to win the south side, just looking at where the bases are at the moment.
That's not a bad assumption. I actually think that this one's going to be a little bit more peasant favored. Except for the fact that, oh, actually, yeah, I hadn't looked at a couple of these, the peasant sides. That is a very slow build up for the purple player, and a very heavy defensive play for the light blue player. So that's definitely, and they're up against one of the stronger kings.
Is to get into your king and deal as much damage as you possibly can in that first push. If you get to the point where you need your defenses, there's a good chance that they probably weren't going to save you for more than a minute or two anyway.
Speaking of the 10-minute mark, the next 3 minutes are a lot of eco building and then transitioning into army. What do you think are the 3 most viable strategies for the peasants?
Ticks is definitely a go-to. If you can get a massive ticks, they can make their way through most of the defenses. Not all of them will, but if you can get a few of them into a king's base, then either targeting some conversion to make things pop, or if you can get the build turrets, that build power going down is what will cripple a king more than losing their energy.
I think these kings are going to be in a bit of trouble if we look at Orange not reclaiming that lab. He's got a 3-minute build time on that fusion, and there is only 2 minutes left to go, so units being up is not going to be a thing.
Yeah, where are we at? Yellow looks to be doing relatively well. His fusion's just come up now.
It's actually pretty early for a fusion. I struggled to get mine before about the 8:20, 8:30 mark. So props to him. Though definitely not quite as much of a heavy wind investment as I usually go, so I guess there's something to be said for that. He does need to start looking at units. Punjab has paused the game. What are we looking at? Okay, this is a pause of this is just a momentary pause. Something obviously gone wrong, and we're back to it.
It was lagging and just catching up by the look of it.
Okay. No worries then. This is a rather large battle type, so that is definitely possible. We did say that it's a global community. And then jumping back to the kings, what do you think is the most viable for kings, defense or offense?
I think offense is the go for all of them. Kings definitely need more defense. Will definitely need an element of defense because they need to be able to hold off those 2 fronts at once. So for the kings, you largely need something that can hold off tick spam. And if they've got ranged artillery, then by that point your defenses will just get picked apart no matter what.
My go-to for...
Fiends are a
Yes.
good strategy, is if you can get a mass of fiends and then just throw them at the problem.
You don't even need
Normally
that
you have
many.
much less of a problem at the end of it.
But yes, my go-to is to jam one side up with LLTs because they're cheap, and your T1 builders can spam them out. You don't normally need them after the 7-minute mark. And then to rush fiends down the other lane and hope that you can cripple one player in enough time to then rush down and get the second player with your fiends once they're done with
Yeah.
the first.
That's where you really hope that you got the defenses on the side that's just throwing spam at you so that they can all stop. And whoever you're running into is the player that didn't build any defenses.
We are 10 seconds out from the action. I'm staying a little bit on these zoomed out so we can see where these first attacks are going to come from. I think B-Bomb's definitely going to be one of them.
Yeah,
And then
B-Bomb's going to
I'm
be
going
charging
to
in.
jump on into the action when we see it. So first players going in are blue and purple. And up the top there's some very minor skirmishes coming out from those guys. So I'm going to have a look in at blue.
The battles are going to be on this bottom side.
We've
Interesting
got
to see that Spybot going in. I always
I
forget they exist.
hate the spy bots. Absolutely hate the spy bots. I think that
Because that EMP bomb does a lot of work.
it's not even about the EMP bomb. It's about the fact that even if you're area targeting with hounds or something similar, you just can't punch through.
Relatively quiet up on the northern side for all of the bases.
I have to keep an eye on these recluse, but it looks like we've got a push coming out of red, and it does... Nope, that one is backing out. The most interesting area right now is still the orange base. We've got some Janus pushing up and in. I'm surprised at how effective they're
Light
going.
green is going to do some work with that commander in a second here. They
Yep.
targeted that radar, and this is going to be a lot of that going down on those recluse coming across the backside as well.
Get ready to be degunned.
Yep.
Oh.
I suspect he's trying to hit that fusion. There
Yeah,
we go.
that is most certainly a player down. Good on Winera for tipping the tides. Over here we have a tick rush that is running past the fiends. Tries to engage on the fiends, not the best idea, but there are so few of them they're actually pushing on in.
The ticks overwhelm those fiends, and that's basically what happens. Because you can get so many ticks out, you can generally overwhelm with numbers.
In this case, it looks like they might actually be able to punch on through and get this entire base if they stay a little bit back from those winds. They just need to get some chain reacting, and that is the entire power ecosystem for red down. And this is being backed up by fiends coming on in afterwards. The fiends should get cleaned up, but that's too much damage done to the red king.
Yeah, red has essentially been reset. We can see
the Orange King, though, even though the Orange King was taken out, his welders getting in there and doing some damage. But will it be enough? Conversion going down, and it looks like
it's gonna be enough to wipe that blue base, essentially.
If only he'd walked them away from those defenses. If he'd walked them through the base instead of around it, would have been absolutely devastating. Next most interesting area looks to be...
pink base.
Pink base
is a lot of defenses up there.
And holding reasonably well. Yellow, on the other hand, some fighting going on here. Ticks in front of snipers, but the snipers are taken out by a larger wave of ticks. But the ticks are going to struggle to get into the base with those electricity turrets down and those
When you're running ticks into a base, you ideally want to push hard up against one side, so you're only taking damage off of one of the towers. We can see purple's about to push into this red base again here.
What sort of defenses do we have? So that's not an exploiter, so they're going to be able to take that. There's a couple of twin guards. Twin guards are surprisingly effective against fiends. The high damage and decent fire
down rate is going to be...
Oof. Tick run by into red's base again, not allowing red to recover in any meaningful way. And it looks like the welders are getting up into pink's base. And the hounds behind are just shelling in slowly, so this is going to be a slow push in. The hounds getting up higher and higher. This chip damage will add up pretty quickly. Blue has managed to push past some of the T2 units, as as they are pulled away to deal with purple. And it looks like some of these kings getting picked apart by having to fight on two fronts at once.
Yeah, you can see up in the pink base the drawbacks of just relying on defensive structures. Once they go down, there's nothing to stop anything coming through.
Units
Purple's
are
pushing into this cream, some sumos, but they're not going to be. There's not enough to
one
be able to
pop-up is
do
a
much.
MVP, and it looks like, and that one Sheldon was doing very well, but not quite managing it.
The Yellow King's doing a good job up on his base.
He's actually pushed out, gotten the mechs down below, could get the Geo potentially. Not sort of the normal play we see out of the Kings, but I do like the expansion. Red is doing a lot of fighting, but having to deal with ticks. Sheldon's not the best thing to fight ticks at the moment. But it looks, this is actually turning into a very, very...
The Red King has done well, despite the fact that they've been wiped a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
They're rebuilding and going again.
And with those Sheldons, provided that you keep enough of a screen in front of them for the ticks, they should actually be able to take out those LLTs and open up a base to take. So we'll see whether that ends up happening. However, this is the downside of having a king lose next to you. Blue is getting ready with his snipers to come on in and help.
And those fiends going into the base rather than dealing with the king's army is always the correct option. If you can fight the king's base or the king's army, take the base.
Just up on the yellow base, yellow's managed to push successfully into green and is now cleaning him up. So this is definitely going to be a fall for the top section. Very little in the way of defenses from the dark green player, so once yellow pushes on through the light green, he'll have open season on the dark green.
There will likely be a pulsar up, but there should be enough units that they can surround that without too much difficulty.
Fiends finishing off the red base as well, so 2 kings down with the exception of some units for the red player, and what looks to be 1 peasant down, which is going to be quite the struggle for the kings, because there's now 4 players that are opened up into attacking the other kings. We're going to have to see a quick fight out of
Pink's
the
moving
player.
up into
Oh, very nice, circumventing
base.
the defenses. Not something that we normally see with T1 tanks. They're not the fastest or the strongest unit that the kings can produce, but getting them in there, and that's going to be the build power. There we go. That is chain reaction on that build power, and about to get the fusions.
Some good D guns coming out there, but that's essentially going to be the entire base.
All you got to do is get 1 shot onto those. Or a couple shots onto those. They'll chain react. The other, the build power is all gone, and the comm can be outranged by the tanks. So it should be a good cleanup there. Yellow now in an intense fight with dark green, but dark green is fighting with sprinters against hounds and not enough
taking down that pulsar, and there's not going to be much left to stop those hounds pushing into that base now.
So we're definitely seeing the yellow king cleaning up, and with pink taking all the pressure off from one of his sides. All that comm's going to go down and take out the most of the base. Great play by the yellow player. Now the yellow should
see the expansion of yellow out into those middle mexes and the geo.
Definitely
it's
something
generally difficult to get out into those areas.
But if you can control it, fantastic news for you. Red is retreating his last units across.
Ah, that's the king. So I was thinking that was a peasant coming up there. Although in saying that, there is a con.
It's being chased, and there's an invisible Winera getting ready to do what he did to the red base and try and snipe it.
Yep,
as we can see, T2 defenses.
No vision of it coming in.
T2 defenses are great, but against tick spam, they just are not what you need. You need flame turrets, and you need some sort of rapid
because the
fire
T2 defenses have a period of time of reloading in between shots. The ticks are fast enough that they can just move on through.
And all of this spam is punching through the outer area. I don't think it'll be able to punch through all those pop-ups and the electric turrets.
Seen the commander there now.
But the spam is going right through there. And oh damn, Winera is in the base. He's gonna get to the fusions.
Yep. They
That
are
is
gonna go pop.
disgusting. That's one
Oof.
fusion down. And can he get? He
And
gets
build
both.
power.
That is yellow. Absolutely getting wrecked by that one Kong. That is a disgusting amount of damage that a stealth Kong can do. Gotta make sure that you have closed defenses so that he cannot push on through. And now we are down to just the two kings. Yellow I thought was going to be the...
In fairness to Yellow, I think this is one of the first times they've joined us for this, and having a commander detonate inside your base
is pretty normal.
Isn't necessarily top of your list of things you're expecting to deal with.
Yeah. And now the remaining two kings, they've managed to hold their bases but not push out. And unfortunately, that's going to mean the might of all of the remaining players coming down upon them. As Twig is saying in the chat, we've actually had fairly even wins for the kings and the peasants. Sometimes it comes down to the players, sometimes it comes down to the wind.
Looks like the cream players essentially wiped purple at some point there.
Yeah.
And blue still got a bunch of... Well, still has his base, largely consisting of walls.
Actually, purple hasn't been wiped, that's just all he has.
Okay. I'm seeing another commander coming up the backside again.
Which base? Yep, Winera is in. Oh dear, yep, Winera's definitely playing that comm offense game. Gotta close those gaps, people.
I think he must be running out of commanders that he can throw at them at this point.
How many did he have?
I think that's 3. I'm fairly certain he's blown up 3 bases at this point.
Interestingly enough, Yellow's actually trying to pull himself back together, and he's not doing a bad job of it. He needs to stop production on that Razorback, because he needs to focus a little bit on the eco, but if he can hold on for a little bit, he might be able to regain a defensive position.
It looks like the pink base is just open. No, the commander's gone. So that means that that base is likely to be opened up.
Yeah, with most of those defenses down and snipers firing on in, not a lot that the pink base can really do at this point. Juno coming down to try and take out any jammer bots and any radars, but there were none there to be taken out. Looks like the cream player is gonna head on in to the purple player and take them out. No more build power, no more building. And so we'll see him slowly take out the excess energy, and then it is just the light blue player to take out. Horns coming in, Grunts coming in, dealing minor damage, not going to be able to punch through these defenses. But they are giving vision to the Sheldons. Yellow holding reasonably well, but that's also because a huge amount of Grunts is not pushing in. That one Razorback is doing a good job, but it's about to be stunned, and I think that's what he was waiting for, to send all of the Grunts in. Yellow taking quite the beating and losing his units to the Sheldons and the ticks spam. Reasonably passive lane coming out from the pink side still. Snipers just slowly running their way in, and here we go. Here's the big assault into the yellow team.
And we should see this commander going down here in a second.
It's getting right in the front. Looks like it's going for some D-guns. There we go, all right down the middle of the lane. Doesn't quite get a good D-gun, but still takes out a lot of the poor. In fact, takes out all the Grunts before, with its final explosion. And now it's just going to be Sheldons pushing their way in. And this is essentially the end for the yellow player. And we are down to
And it is
2.
just the cream commander left, I believe.
Yes. We've got a lot of scaling eco coming out of these players. Blue has taken a heavy economic stance, taking all of the mechs in the middle. And we're about to see the purple player start running over the rest of the team.
You can see Cream shelling that base with his Sheldons.
Doing the
Didn't realize
best.
he transitioned into vehicles.
Couple
For
of
that light blue
tanks.
player.
You notice tanks can drive, those T2 tanks can drive straight through the walls, so they're actually a pretty good option to break out and try and take on these Sheldon walls. It's actually something which I knew in the back of my head, but I've never seen it like that, and it's quite a good thing to witness.
T3 can also walk straight through them as well from memory.
Yes. Sniper versus sniper war coming up here, but with the spam coming on through and the welders, the larger quantity of snipers from the background is going to punch on in. Looks like if there's just an aggressive move now, Pink will be done for. Just has to walk into the base, which is what is happening.
I'm surprised with the res bots going in.
They're trying to reclaim the lab. That's a donate. It's a medal donation if I've ever seen one. Good job. Razorback getting in behind, and that is closing up that's going to close up Pink for the day. And now we're down
So for
to
any
just
that
the
were
one
wondering,
king.
that is a good offensive use of your res bots.
Just while there's a pause between the action, just want to look down. The sort of swamp green colored player they dealt with their king very quickly, but it's been about 15 minutes since that happened, and they're only just getting back into the fight. And I understand the desire to scale on up, but if the kings had been slightly more successful, this sort of play just doesn't end well. You want to scale up as much as you can off of reclaim, but you have to keep spamming units out into the other team, and you have to keep pushing on in, because this one
Particularly where
Titan...
you've got ranged units. If you can leave them at the limit of their range, just shelling into a base or shelling spam that's running out of the base, just anything to get damage onto the king.
And accompany them by a Prophet and an Umbra, because that gives you them the radar and it gives them the jamming, and then that they can really be effective. This king could easily have been taken out if Blue and Swamp Green had pushed right on in after taking their king out, because this game is generally very balanced. 2 kings versus 2 players. We find it's 50-50-ish on which side wins. If you win yours and you just tip even just a couple of units in from an unusual angle, you really can change the outcome of a base. And hence why we talked about...
hold off your 2 peasants, but as soon as there's some extra spam or some extra units coming from the side,
or a single recluse coming up the back, it absolutely changes.
Anything to draw your attention off of the front where you're dealing with things to something else. Because generally you don't have a lot to spare, so if there's anything that comes from wherever you're not prepped to deal with it, then it can be really rough.
That is GG GG and a win for the peasants. Good game by everyone. Unfortunately, the inexperience of the kings definitely showing on through, falling prey to Winira's tactics and not quite scaling enough at the start. When a couple of kings fall that early, it's a very, very rough game for the kings.
In saying that, I haven't seen many of us handle the comm bomb in the middle of the king's base well yet.
I did last game. He didn't get in. All you need to there's only a certain degree width of angles, and all you need to do is stop him from walking up in those places. It doesn't take very much, just a couple of LLTs. And on that note, we'll call that one here. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe. If you want to let us know anything, jump on down into the comments. If you think that the Winira tactics are a little bit unfair, let us know. We might end up putting a limit on him doing it only with the comm that he is given at the very start. We will experiment around with it. We do want to make this game mode fair and balanced for everyone. If you want to join us, we do this on Sunday nights. That is Australian time. We've got our Discord link in the description. We post about our live events in there, so get on in, join us, see if you can show us exactly what's what. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.